Hello everyone, welcome back to Wartburg. And you can see for once we're not in the downtown today. So if you watched the last episode, you may have noticed that when I was working on the port with the big industrial district, that when we were building a couple of the unique factories, we were actually lacking quite a few natural resources. So the plan for today is to fix that issue and get plenty more natural resources being extracted and processed so that we are not importing stuff for our factories and they can run more efficiently. And then also to round out that entire port and hopefully get the shipyard and the car factory built because they were too big to place last episode. And the fact that we're lacking plenty of raw materials meant that this had to be done first before we could actually build them. So the plan for today is actually to first of all deal with the oil industry down here. You can see it is 5 stars, and it is making quite a lot of money, but we're mainly like less than half or about half of the crude oil we extract isn't being processed into petroleum or plastics. It's just kind of like you can see how much we just have stored, and then that's all being sold directly for. First of all, that's going to be sold for way less, and second of all, we are lacking so much plastics and so much petroleum that isn't getting put down into our factories here, as you can see. So what I want to first of all do is get dealing with that issue, and then we're also going to head over and fix a couple of issues with our farming district as well. And then once that is done, I'm just going to quickly do this. There we go. Once that is done, I'm going to make this oil industry look quite a bit better. And then after that, that means we are free to move on and expand into this island, because I just wanted to make sure that despite the fact we are making quite a bit of weekly income, every now and then we do drop into the red. As you can see, it's literally done right now. And that's not the end of the world because we do make the money back quick. But I'd rather have like a more solid, stable income ready for expanding out into here. So that is the plan for today. So step one, I think, of the oil industry, which is basically our biggest problem, is the lack of plastics and petroleum we are producing from the insane amounts of oil we are actually extracting. So that's what we're going to do first. So I think the plan of action should be fix these traffic issues here, optimize the road network a bit to make sure that we can deal with the extra factories, and then once that is sorted, probably get a few more workers barracks down to increase the efficiency of the buildings we're about to place down, and then get all the processing plants built. So now that we have done some significant work on the area, one of the issues we now seem to be having is a lack of workers, specifically a lack of uneducated workers, because it seems now that our population is extremely highly educated for city Skylines standards. So what we want to do is bring people away from going to university in the city and try and get them working out in our industrial areas. So what I think an easy solution to this would be whether we have some residential demand. So the quickest and easiest solution I can think of is just building some suburbs and kind of like a small village, kind of like town-like area out on these flat grasslands here. So obviously we have the oil industry right here, but this public services plant isn't the ugliest place to live next to. I mean, it's not optimal, but in terms of building some affordable housing here, especially for the workers of the oil fields, it would probably boost the area quite a bit and fill up this work account, because we still seem to be, despite building 8 of these naphtha cracker plants to turn oil into plastics, they're not getting off the ground as quick as they could be, probably because of a lack of workers. So what the plan is build this small town in this area here, and if needs be we can expand up here as well, which we'll probably do in the future anyway, but just for now I think this area is sufficient, and then continue to build up more processing plants, also petroleum. But you can see we have 320 tons of storage for plastics and we only use 53. So there definitely is still lots of oil to be used, and probably that's because of the lack of workers. So that's what I can get cracking with now. So with regards to education, obviously we need quite a lot of uneducated workers to, what this will hopefully help with as well in the long run is to prevent the 1,200 overeducated workers we have here from being stuck in these jobs, and hopefully move them on to working in offices and stuff when we do proceed to build and expand the downtown, and allow these jobs to fill up with uneducated workers. So obviously we do want them to have a slight level of education, but I think it would still be wise of us to build the bare minimum, so a primary school and a secondary school. Obviously I just want to make sure that we have all the basic services. So you can see it's not like it's not necessarily a bad place, it's just, to be honest, it does actually look quite nice out here. So we have basic services, we also want medical services, and yeah, we'll include, I can fit right in there up against the edge, just so we're not, because it's not optimal to build houses right up against, even though this isn't like particularly what you'd class as heavy industry, or maybe you would with the you probably definitely would with the waste processing complexes, but with regards to the solar updraft tower and the processing tanks and then the wind turbines. It's not the most unpleasant place. It might be a bit of an eyesore, but excluding that, it's not terrible. And then I also built a geothermal power plant because with all these factories and processing plants that we built, we were actually in the yellow for electricity availability. So just building this geothermal power plant will help power the rest of what we're building. And with regards to transport to this area, there is a bus line that runs here that I'm going to redirect just to also stop within the small village. I don't actually know which line this is and how much usage it gets. It's one of these lines. Okay, so they're hardly being used. So number one is not being used much at all. Number two is being used slightly more. So rather than increase the number of buses, oh no, actually, because they're already then on their lines. So we'll just up the bus number. We'll double it actually just to overcompensate for now, so that once other people have moved in, it should be fine. And I'm hoping that is the same bus line that runs through here. I'm just gonna quickly change the color so we can see which one it actually is. Okay, so it's not the same one that runs. Okay, so that one comes up and down that way. Okay, so they are actually two different bus lines. So I think what is probably better to do is just eliminate the first one, because it seems quite pointless with how little people are using it. And then with the amount of new buses we've just put on here, it's probably more efficient to now just... Okay, so adding another stop that way is kind of useless. It's probably better to just do this and redirect to this stop. And also I wouldn't mind it stopping at the train station too. There we go. So yeah, there is also obviously the train station that can take passengers directly into, yeah, there is a line, and I would assume, yeah, so that runs directly to the central terminal. So plenty of public transport access there. And then once, actually this one wants traffic lights probably, and the same with up here. So I don't think traffic is going to be an issue at all in this area, but there's no harm in just making sure the majority of our road signs and traffic lights are all set up, just so we don't ever have the problem. So with regards to zoning, actually just before we get doing that, I do want to also get some path networks down so it's quite walkable. I mean, the more green and environmentally friendly we can make this town, the better, because obviously this town is fueling the oil industry, which is not the most environmentally friendly industry ever. So the more we can do to offset the carbon footprint of that, the better. But just placing a couple trees and paths down isn't really going to do too much, but it's the thought that counts. And then obviously we have the main road that all the industry uses out here, so blocking this off with trees is probably also going to be beneficial to the residents. And once the homes are moved in, I will also fence off their back gardens so that it feels more private. So now zoning, we do want some commercial because the citizens will need it. So we'll just do what we normally do and place it along the main roads. I'm probably going to place it sparingly because I want to use the majority of this area for residential. So with regards to high density, do we integrate it into... No, I'll redo the district so it's all nice and separate. So now that we have got the district placed down, I do actually want to include some higher density residential. But yeah, there we go. We've already got the policy active. So I think this policy high-rise ban is applied throughout the entire city, and then the places where I do want to have high-rise, I take it off. Because City Skylines buildings get pretty tall pretty quick, kind of in an unrealistic manner. So I prefer to limit the height until it is necessary to have buildings that tall. So we can actually just squeeze a bit more out of this space here. And also obviously paths are the best thing you can place down. Making a city walkable is so good, and it's so overlooked because it really does improve the traffic so much, and you never really notice it, but it provides an alternate path for residents, and it really does help. So with regards to high density, obviously I want to have a bit of it down, but I don't want to overkill it because it is quite out of the way with regards to the location of this village. So I think in the central areas we'll have the higher density, and then on all of the outskirts I think that's also a good place to funnel a path down here, and then we can just connect this up also. There we go. And then we can just zone the rest as low density residential. And a lot of buildings are filling in already, so I'm just going to quickly pause before this place actually really gets underway. But I think this is looks like quite a nice place considering its undesirable location and surroundings. But I'm excited to see how quickly this grows and if it really does help us out with our oil industry. So now that we've let the village grow and fill in, I've remembered I didn't actually put any schools down. So I quickly just want to put in an elementary school, and then we literally just also want a bog standard high school. And I'm not too worried about making these look amazing. It's a shame we are going to have to demolish quite a few houses. I'll put it on the corner here and then just close it off as well. But yeah, the commercial areas are having some difficulty with educated workers, and I was really confused because they can't have leveled up that much. Although this one requires a lot of educated workers. But I'm just hoping now, if we look at the average education levels of this area, they should be relatively low compared to the rest of the city. Yeah, I can't believe I spent the entire time letting this place grow and not remember I hadn't placed any schools down. And then The elementary school also needs to be fenced off as well. There we go. So we will just get rid of all the abandoned buildings. So if we look at the education levels, yes, these guys are not educated at all, which is what we want. And then eventually they will become, they will be educated and well educated. And then by that point, we should just be able to stick some more houses, because in the end, we want the schools to not have enough capacity for the whole area. So a lot of the residents are forced into just going straight to work rather than actually going into education, which is what is most optimal for this area. So we'll leave them power cables there because they look nice, and considering we have a huge power plant, realistically you'd want some power cables leaving. You wouldn't want it just transferring from house to house or under the road. I think we actually will also zone houses next to the geothermal power plant, and then just fence all of the kind of electrical network off so that it doesn't pose a threat and people can't actually access it. We'll use a metal fence for that because that seems a bit more appropriate. There we go. So then obviously we also have these houses at the front that are all facing with their backs to the road that you really wouldn't want. So I think for the benefit of these people, we will just, I can also turn collisions off so we can place in back gardens for these guys that are private from the road. And then I need to remember to turn collisions back on because I forget to turn it on a lot of the time. So we seem to have got a pretty good basis, and now let's see if it has served the purpose we want it to. And it has. We've gained about 400 workers, which is pretty good, and you can see that we have way more uneducated workers, but we're still using so many highly educated workers. So I think we're going to have to continue to expand out here. But we are now producing a lot more barrels of plastic and petroleum. So ultimately, these aren't actually filling up anymore. Now we are actually getting crops in here as well, which is great because we were having some issues over here. So yeah, if we just have these on empty, because we want all these crops to immediately get down to the docks, so we preferably don't want to be storing them up over at the farming district. I think those are all the places that we store crops. Yeah, they're all on empty as well. So we probably do want some extra storage for these crops. So we place just 2 large grain silos here on balance so we can store plenty of crops right near the lemonade factory. And then petroleum also is what we're lacking over here. So we've got plenty of metal. I think petroleum really is the main thing that we are lacking. So if we start putting these on balanced again, hopefully they will now start to fill up. And where is the nearest petroleum storage? So yeah, we now have plenty of plastics. We are lacking a slight bit of flour, but I don't think that's too serious because not many places require flour. So yeah, it's petroleum that we're really lacking. So I think we can switch this over from plastics to petroleum since we have both of these plastic storages here. And then actually, I think that's fine being on unique factory products. So plastics are actually lacking despite the fact we have had an increase in plastics. I'd assume that's just because the trucks are making their way over to this factory. And I've just noticed a little traffic issue where there's a left-hand turn and a straight-on lane in one. So yeah, I think we are starting to, yeah, you can see the plastics just got delivered now. So once them crops make their way over from the farm to here, which they already are doing, they will then make their way into this factory. And then petroleum is now the only issue. So we are now producing more plastics than petroleum. It's still not as much as we'd want it to be out of the raw oil, but it's better than it was before. So I think the last thing we actually really realistically need to do is get more petroleum producing facilities down, and then I think we're in a pretty good spot. Okay, so things are finally starting to work out, other than the fact it's raining. We did have a few traffic issues, but I think they're starting to be resolved. There is some large volumes of traffic, and this backlog was mainly caused by the cargo rail stations, which I just want to actually check that everyone does stay in their lane in the lead up to this. So because we only had one cargo rail station, it was proven to cause like a lot of backing up as everyone was waiting for their turn to get in here. But now we have two, they can just use either side of the road and access both terminals, so it really speeds up how well this works. And now, yeah, this is looking pretty good, because I think we are starting to fill up. There we go, look at that. The plastics and petroleum warehouses that have the rail access are really starting to fill up now. And although we are lacking petroleum here, and plastics. I would assume it's not long before it all manages to make its way through the system. So if we have these unbalanced, and actually, yeah, it's probably best to keep these unbalanced so they don't put any more trucks into the insane traffic that we get. So we actually have some severe traffic issues here. Wonder why this guy's just not going. Probably because it's quite busy here. I mean, yeah, we're always going to have issues down at the docks, but this is a problem for another time that we're going to ignore for now. But yeah, we're actually at the point where it's saying that there's not enough buyers for our products because we're producing that much now, which I guess is a good thing because that means we can start now, although we're having power issues. Okay, yeah, so building. Okay, so I think the final thing we're going to do, because ultimately we're also at the point here now where we're also having not enough buyers for our products, which I guess is good because it means we're producing enough, but it's not good because it means we're kind of lacking a bit. Although it's a little bit weird because it's saying there's not enough buyers for our products, yet we don't have enough raw materials down at these factories to actually make us any money. I would assume that could be a mix of the immense amount of traffic, so there's actually trucks not being able to move, although these are all commercial vehicles. So when you do leave, I don't know where these guys want to go, so look at the route. Okay, so they're exiting this way, which is really weird because you can just exit via this way, and I don't understand why they don't all do that. So I think I need to rethink this kind of rail hub here. But yes, I think the last thing we need to do today is sort out our power issues. I think the one power source that we don't have is actually nuclear, and I can't think of anywhere really better to put it than all the way out here on the outskirts near our main public services plant and our oil industry. So I'm just going to build quite a big area, and we're going to get a nuclear power plant down. So I think we'll put it right up against the edge here rather than blocking these two roads. So that's 640 megawatts. So that's like over a quarter of all the power produced in the city is just by this one nuclear power plant, which is pretty crazy. So now that we have our industry pretty much optimized to the point where it's working too well, we should probably focus on further down the production chain, which is once all the raw materials that we are now producing have been moved over to the port. So the first issue before I expand is obviously this traffic. Now, clearly with the shipyards, there's always going to be traffic here, and you can see it does clear up once we move out here. But then we start queuing again as they head into these tunnels. So the way this actually works underground is they meet up down here. Okay, so a few of them are looping round as well because that's the only way to access this cargo train station. So what I think needs to happen is that this needs to go, because although it is bringing in goods, all we really care about is it bringing in the plastics, all the raw materials from our other industries to be processed into the unique factories, which can then export via the port. So this is kind of unnecessary, so it can be removed, and then that should hopefully relieve the pressure, because I think when I was originally adding that cargo rail station in, I was mainly doing it just for the way it looked. So obviously we can clean this up and it can still look like a rail yard, which is fine. Although I may redevelop it into some sort of road network to improve the traffic here, because it's still proved to be an issue. But yeah, you can see we have cargo trains able to access these warehouses anyway. So then the next issue is the fact that there's traffic coming in and out both ways, and then it blocks up here. And I think that's because these, yeah. So for whatever reason, rather than leaving via this highway and going out into the city this way, cars are deciding to come back out this way, which I think that whole thing needs to just be completely removed. Because ultimately they should all just, the plan originally in the first place was for them to come in here, loop around, access the cargo hubs, and then come back down and out this way, which is what needs to happen. And as long as they are only turning right, which they are, it should all flow quite nicely. Now you're always going to get traffic here because these cargo hubs are like, they're poorly set up. The best thing probably to do is to have it like these two train stations where you have the road running down the middle and each one on either side, so you can see how they're using both lanes, the left to get into the left one, the right to get into the right one. Whereas over here, they're using the right lane for both, so all the traffic is clogging up into one lane. And that may actually be what we have to do to resolve it. Or I could downsize one into a cargo harbour just to reduce the pressure slightly, because what I'm thinking is we have such good road access that we can probably exploit it fine. The only issue I can think of really is space. But let's just see how this traffic clears up now that we have changed the road layout up here. The traffic is kind of clearing up with regards to this, but because these vehicles now exit into this right hand lane and don't have time to change beforehand, they all have to head down here, loop around at the end and come back down. So everything outside of the actual cargo hubs is fine. Like, I think if it was only the vehicles accessing these 4 warehouses, there would be nowhere near as much traffic because they'd happily just loop back up at the top and come down. Or there's I'm even thinking to, although to be fair, actually, I was going to say I could loop them back round and bring the road down through here, which might actually work. So actually, yeah, that's probably a shout to get that done now. So if this moves and becomes one way down here, hopefully the road will be able to fit underneath. But if I were to remove these rail tracks, I can then just, I'll run it back here, join it back in, I'll run that all the way back up here and then flip the direction. It will make the whole process so much more efficient, and it doesn't fit, but just for easiness while we're working on such a difficult thing, we'll say that it works. And then it's not the smoothest curve, so I think it would actually be easier to use the create curve tool to connect, but although it really doesn't like doing that, does it? If I do create connection, does that work any better? It seems to want to do really weird things. Okay, so I am just gonna have to do it myself and try and make it look better. The problem is, obviously, we do have to run by this train line first, and then that kind of creates the uneven sort of curve, and that is abysmal. So that definitely needs some serious improvement. And I mean, it's not too much better, but we can just do the classic, cover it up with trees, and it is an industrial area. So apart from that now, and I think it's actually a smart idea to, I was going to say, actually, rather than make this into a 3-lane road, make this into a 1-lane road, and then also make this into a 1-lane road. Obviously the traffic will have to merge at this point here, which would cause a slight issue. But it just means that they're not merging down here where all the traffic meets together. I don't know why it assumes that those are the lanes I'd want it to go to. There we go. So that improves there. As you can see, the traffic that comes down here just clears instantly. So yeah, the decision I've come to is that we're going to have to rework the entire port. So because this might be a bit finicky and I really want to make it look nice, I think I'm just going to do a big time lapse and hopefully get this port looking pretty good. So after playing around with a couple of different attempts and designs, I came to the conclusion that this is probably the best setup. Now, it looks brilliant right now in regards of traffic. As you can see, it looks so much more fluent and less crazy and chaotic than it did earlier. Now, I don't know whether that's because they're newly built and lots of vehicles are now re-pathfinding their way to this area, or because it actually works better. I'm hoping it's the latter option, but it's more likely that vehicles just haven't found their way down here yet, and will start to once they figure everything out. But for now, it seems like it's working way better. So basically what I did was I created 2 separate terminals. The one on the left, which just serves locally this kind of industrial area, so it's not connected to the outside highway, it's just connected up to the road in here and then comes back out. So that also prevents lots of vehicles coming out from the main cargo hub and then making their way through the industrial area to get out, so it's stopping the traffic buildup that was here. And then obviously the main highway runs down and in to the main cargo hub that serves the rest of the city and the rest of the whole wider area. And then also there is the loop to access the 4 train stations here with these raw materials in them. And I actually seem to have made an error with the directions of one of the paths, but I'm hoping now that a lot of the okay, so this paper, this plain timber is empty, so hopefully more paper can make its way through. But yeah, we have only got a few factories that are lacking raw materials, and I would assume that's because the raw materials are just making their way over. We have plenty of plastics and plenty of crops. The only thing we're actually lacking a bit of output in is flour. So obviously I was aiming to work on the farming area today and we've kind of neglected it slightly. But what I might do is just the most simple solution, which is just slap down 3 new flour mills right in the middle of the farm area. And luckily, because the farming buildings are actually all tied together so nicely, you don't even need to put effort in, as you've just seen, to make it look good. So hopefully now we are a lot more efficient and optimized than we were previously. And now we can finally focus on the final 3 factories. So the modular house factory is quite huge, and I would like to put it, we can't even fit it in here. Okay, we can this way, just, but the slope is a tad concerning. So this warehouse isn't even filling up, so there's no point having it there. If I were to place this in now, how does that slope look? Okay, it's not the worst thing in the world. See, the best thing to probably do here is just do what I did in the last episode, which is use the key wall to reduce the effect, well, like essentially hide the look of the slope of the terrain. If I actually delete that one as well and move this down to that height, and then drag that back a bit, and then we just smooth all this out. It's smooth and it's not doing too much. So then we go to the fallback option of trees, just to kind of hide the slope a bit. And then that actually fits in quite nicely. So obviously there is this bit at the back, and what I'm thinking we can do is just extend the key wall down, so then it runs into the building, so that's kind of hidden. And then we do have one weird patch of, so I think that is actually because of the building of the modular house factory. There we go. But if I just move that up a little bit, then it becomes hidden. And these containers actually do jump up to the next level, so that actually fits in quite nicely there. So what does it require? Glass, metals, plain timber and plastic. So with regards to metals, I think we do have somewhere that stores them. Yeah, it's right here and it's 27% full. So that should move them into here quite soon. And this is still lacking crops. Where are the these silos have so many crops in them. Maybe we just need to remove these ones as well. But I don't understand why this lemonade factory is always lacking crops. But anyway, so we've got the modular house factory down. So the last 2 are the shipyard and the car factory. So the car factory is the biggest, so I think we can fit them both into this area here. We should be able to stick the car factory right underneath it here. Yeah, so it's actually so unbelievably huge. So what I'm thinking actually we can do to use this space more efficiently and not have to terraform anymore is actually place it this way. Yeah, so we've actually got way more room. So I want the road to run up to about that tree in the middle. So about here. And it should then run pretty close to the edge. There we go. That is much better. So how do we actually want this to set up? Because we also need to get the shipyard in as well. So this road, I want to keep everything 4-lane roads because I'm happy with the fact we have a lot more space using quite wide larger roads for the amount of larger vehicles we'll have running through here. And then if I just flatten that out, we should then be able to run this road directly behind it too, and back up and down, and then it can connect back up into this roundabout. And if I use the cheaty way of create a curve for a nice smooth road, and then we will just flatten this landscape out and then smooth the side of the mountain a bit just so it doesn't look as ugly. There we go. So then all we've got to do now is get the key walls down all the way around. So now we've got this looking a bit better and more organized. There's a little bit of a lighting glitch going on when you kind of zoom out, like some bits of it go darker really than others. But anyway, we can now finally get the last unique factory, excluding the seafood factory, which we will sort soon. We can get the shipyard down. So I am just going to get it right up with the car factory, so we will line it up a bit, and then obviously we'll have to move it to the same height as everything else. But now we can just do same as we always do, is unlock that segment. We can change it to whatever road we want. We will just make it a one-way road. I'm actually just using the normal roads here because I feel like it. We've done everything in this area with the industry roads, which is like, you kind of meant to do that, but it does get boring after a little bit. So we will just make these intersections look a bit better by squaring them up. And then we will provide it with water. Actually, this still needs to be one way. There we go. So now that we have these last two factories in, we need to hook them up with power, but that will come naturally when we get the... Okay, so the only thing why would a car factory need animal products? Is the one thing I'm wondering. But yeah, I want to get the warehouses down to store the goods that these places need. So it mainly looks like they both need glass, metals, and plastics. Then animal products and plains timber are the others. So we will get the large warehouses for, just make sure we have anarchy turned off. So the large warehouses for glass, and then we will also have one for metals. And then obviously we need plastics, so we could probably do a large warehouse plastics as well actually. And then we'll need a medium one for planed timber, and then a medium one for animal products. Now this area, I actually on second thought also want to move this large warehouse into this area, because even though it's just kind of the fact it was at a different angle was just throwing me a little bit. It just didn't look as uniform as the rest of it. So now that we have all of this set up, the power issues are not resolved mainly. We'll just hook them over with a power line. So now that we have the whole dock set up, it is looking pretty cool. So obviously this left hand side is a little bit bland, but I don't think that's the end of the world. If I want to, I may make it look a bit better at some point. I think that is where I'm gonna have to end it for today, because I've recorded a little bit too much. I kept getting distracted by all these different things, which kind of happens when you're making industrial areas, because there's so many knock-on effects, because there's so much stuff involved. You kind of get sidetracked a bit, but I had fun recording it nevertheless. So I hope you guys all enjoyed watching, and I will see you in the next episode.